All right, welcome back to the shop, everybody. I'm Chad. This is Carter Engineering and Fabrication. Week 12 of me bringing you guys along for whatever projects I could get into that I think are video worthy. I've got a few gems this week to go through. The first one is DIY rust removal. I always want to say acid removal. Rust removal system. I'll get into the details of that in a moment, and then some workbench updates in the shop, and then the majority of today's video is going to be continuing on the Crown Vic Skylark frame mashup. So I got some good work done on that. Let's get into it. So on Instagram, I keep seeing this clip of DIY acid removal or rust removal using a mixture of citric acid and sodium carbonate. And the oddity to me was that they were mixing those two together, and to me that seems like one would just cancel the other out. And so I had, I'm no expert in chemistry, I had ChatGPT help me, and we basically outlined a plan of doing an acid bath, a rinse, and then a sodium carbonate or a washing soda bath to add a layer of protection. Apparently if you make the metal slightly alkaline, it will prevent it from flash rusting. So I thought, this is a reasonably inexpensive test to see how well this performs, and I had high confidence, but I had moderate confidence. But here's the cheap immersion heater. I was a little disappointed. I didn't pay much attention when I ordered it, and it doesn't have any temperature control. This is just for like heating stock buckets, which is fine. I'll come up with something a little better. So here I am putting in approximately 2 gallons. I actually weighed it. That's what I'm doing there, is tearing the scale and then figuring out my percentage. So this is a 10% citric acid solution. The instructions were at the beginning, but you can pause those and read them if you want. So just keeping this moving forward. I've got the acid, and then I did the immersion heater and brought it up initially to about 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and then pulled the heater out. With more time, I probably could have babysat it. It really needs something with a circulation and temperature control like a sous vide, or something with like a PID control. But again, an initial test, less than $100 just to see how this goes. And I've got enough solution to make quite a few gallons of both the acid and the base mixture. So here's the heater coming out, just getting dipped to get the acid off of it, and then the parts going in. We've got some wheel hardware from an antique tractor, and then some bumper brackets from the Buick. So the parts going in, and this is the beginning. This is about, I think, 11:30 in the morning. Oh, yep. And then the base is prepped and ready. Everything's covered. After 6.5 hours, you can see that the acid is definitely working. And 9.5 hours, not a big change. At this point, I think the reaction is slowing down a little bit, but the water acid mixture is getting darker, and at this point, I think it's probably approaching ambient. I didn't have the heater back in it. So here I am calling this test complete at 20 hours. And honestly, at first, I wasn't sure that they were going to look that good, but a quick dip in the rinse and then into the basic solution, really a mild agitation there. Like if I would have just scrubbed them a little bit, I think they would have looked great. But here I am bringing the parts out, and a little bit of work with a DA sander, or a few seconds in a blast cabinet, and these parts are ready to use again. Really worth the minimal amount of effort that it took to put them in a tank. And if I had some temperature control, I think they would have even done that much better. But I'm going to throw the before picture up here in just a second. But the amount of rust that is left is pretty minimal. And yeah, there's the before. They were well coated with surface rust. Never expect them to turn out this good. Definitely recommend. Use at your own risk, but this is a good thing. All right, just a quick one here. I found this an auction addiction problem, and I found this bench. I knew my wife would like it, and got it home, and she very much did. So happy birthday, lady. Happy early birthday. And yeah, it's a nice addition to the front porch. All right, so this is kind of a off topic. When I did the pallet racking, I left one shelf to be my, quote unquote workbench in the dirty room, and I hadn't got back to it yet. But it's finally warmed up enough that I can use the polyurethane adhesive, the Loctite PL. It's actually pretty good adhesive. We've done some tests at work, and it performs well. So I'm trimming up some of this. This is I think maple veneer plywood. I don't know. It's tree stuff. I'm not that big of a tree person, but I like to do a hardwood like band on the front with round over, and that gives you a bit of a softer touch on the edge. So here I am just trimming up the excess pieces. This racking is about 9 feet, so I've got an 8-foot sheet, and then it cut down, and then all the 2x material, and here I am putting out the Loctite PL. I have to skip ahead a little bit because my SD card didn't like to record for some reason. So here I am putting a round over on a piece of, I think it's 1x2 red oak, just to soften that up. And I couldn't find, I swear I had a finish nailer and I couldn't find it. All I could find was my brad nailer. So you'll see in just a second, I throw some of that same adhesive on and just brad nail it in place just to get any warping out of it. And again, I lost more of the footage. I've got to get some better SD cards. But trimming the second piece, same thing again. Just a quick round over, and it's probably not the right clamps to use, but this is going to get beat up. It's just a relatively inexpensive workbench. The nice thing about this is when it's in the pallet racking, everything above it is still usable storage. So trying to increase some of the working space in the shop, and then this one obviously has quite a bit of storage underneath as well, so you'll see in just a moment. But yeah, getting the second piece in, it just butted joints because, again, not fancy. I'm a real hack. Here I am rubbing sawdust into the joint just to rub some of the excess adhesive away. I love the fast cleanup stuff. So watch me broom everything up, and then we're calling this project done. So we're back on the Crown Vic frame, or town car frame, same difference. So I wanted to make some little stanchions. In preparation for trimming this frame down for length, I wanted to be able to support the front. And I'm taking a little extra time here to set up these C-channel bottoms, and I have them, square to the table, and I've marked their location, and the front edge is flush. So that gives me a reference in a few different directions. The rest of it doesn't matter. They're kind of scabbed on here, but I am trying to take a little time to make sure that when I split this frame apart, I can get it back together as accurately as is reasonable. And it really amazes me how floppy this thing is once you start to cut it apart. So I'm going to do something similar at the back, where I lay out a framing square and just get some references square to the table, and some 4/2 distances. That way, same thing, right? When I cut this thing all loose, I can have some good confidence that, one, I shortened it the correct amount. It's about 5 3/4 inches. And that I get it back together and it's not a parallelogram, and doesn't potato chip all over the place. So hindsight being what it is, I should have just taken it outside for this process, but here we are with the fiberglass blanket and an old piece of sheet metal. The Temu plasma cutter's coming out, and we're gonna go to town hacking this up. I was on the fence cutting the front of the frame rail, where it transitions into the frame horns, or the rear. And the rear would have been easier, but all of this like transmission cross member area and all of this metal, it seems, one, it's heavy, and two, it's right where basically I just want to take it all out. I want to run some tubes to add a little bit more torsional stiffness and connect the front frame rails farther inboard, and then my own transmission cross member. So I'm cutting out a lot more than is necessary to just shorten the frame, but long term it's going to be a lot better, and this will make more sense in a moment. But it's serious when I've got my gray Under Armour pants on. We're going to have some fun today, so let's. I got this sped up a little bit, and it's kind of difficult to see how they put this together and get to all the pieces. So it was a little bit of a learning curve on the first one, and a lot of it would have been easier, like I say, if I just rolled the frame outside and flipped it upside down. Honestly, I didn't realize how light the frame is at this point. With no front suspension, no rear axle, it's pretty easy to drag it around, but messes can be cleaned up. So here I am gouging, just a regular cutting tip in the plasma cutter, but basically gouged that whole 20-inch section of weld, and it did okay. I over gouged a little bit. I got a few places that I'm going to have to go back in and weld fill and cut loose, but yeah, not terrible. Definitely singed my beard hairs a few times here, but this is like my third time trying to record this voiceover segment. My voice cracked like a teenager, and I almost left it in there, but I don't need that. So let's carry on. Continuing to gouge on this. There's a lot of extra layers in here with the transmission cross member, and I don't know if there was some other structure here, but I think I already mentioned I want to add some tubing down the middle. Pretty common for what they do in Chevelles anyway. Just something to add a little more beam strength, maybe a little more torsional rigidity. I'm going to have my own transmission cross member, and then I've got to figure out exhaust routing too. So I think it's best to clean slate this and cut as much away as I can, clean the frame rail, and trim it down the appropriate, I think like 5.7 inches, something like that. Hopefully I got that right. I did have to cut out some of the outside of the frame and then reach in and cut some of the inside. When they assembled it, it was a lot easier to go one piece at a time, and I'm taking it apart. So I'm learning a bit on the first one. Definitely did a lot better on the passenger side, but not bad. This is where I start to realize how flexible the front is, and I should have foreseen that. The only thing connecting the two fronts of the frame rails is that little cross member at the very front. So setting up for the passenger side, same thing. Duplicated here. I'm laying it out with a China marker and trying to get the front reasonably supported. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. You don't need to see me plasma cut the whole passenger side again, but just imagine I did the same thing a little better. So skipping ahead a little bit, and here I am dragging the rear frame of the section outside, and then putting the front of the frame back up on the table. Before I continue with it any further, this is the point at which I decided to weld a scrap tube across the frame rails. I should have done this earlier when it was all basically before I cut it, but I grabbed a random piece of 3-inch box tube, lining it back up on the table. I'm not sure why I didn't clamp it down. I'm kicking myself as I watch the edit that I think my thinking was that I would cut this tube loose, but now I'm questioning whether this is holding anything out of alignment. So everything's easier with hindsight, I guess. Finally did the smart thing and moved it outside. I've got these ridiculous sawhorses that I got at an auction. I think they came from a bridge company. They were like $10 a piece. It was laughable. They're so heavy. I need to put them on runners so they don't sink in the gravel, and so I can move them around a little easier. I'm thinking like welding some tabs and bolting some 2x4 material down his feet. Here I am trying out a new disc. I'll look it up. Actually, I won't. I didn't like it. I think it was a Walter like rapid cut or something like that. But I thought it would do really well, and it cut okay, but it also consumed really quickly, and I just went back to a hard rock disc after using this one up. I won't buy any more of them. I wasn't impressed. Here I am, 4.5-inch zip disc, taking off some of the material. I did finally get smart and got a full face mask with the filters, and aside from being a heavy mouth breather and fogging up the the glass. It worked really well. It's nice to be able to like gun sight the blade and know that you're not going to throw sparks into your face, especially your eyes, but also the rest of my face. I'm being repetitive at this point, but the frame rails are cleaning up pretty well. Definitely some gouge marks that I'll go back and correct, but nothing that can't be fixed at this point. Trying to just give everything a decent wipe down, getting all these random tabs off, grind as much of the weld as I can, chisel them off, and then grind them flush. Quite a bit more work than I was expecting. At least I'm outside now and I'm manipulating it enough to get it upside down. I wish the sawhorses were a little longer. I should have got this up to a more comfortable working height. My back hurts just watching the video again, but getting the tabs off the bottom, and yeah, there's that disc that is completely gone. So switching back to just a standard like 1/4 inch thick hard rock and going for it. So trying to jump cut this so it's not terribly painful to watch, but this was quite a bit of work. Same thing here on the resuming work on the front frame rails, trying to get these brackets cut loose. There's a weird like foam plastic filler piece. You can spot some of it there. I have no idea what that was. So if anybody's familiar with Crown Vic frames, help me out. I don't know what that stuff is. But thankful we had a pretty nice, like slightly chilly, but pretty nice day on Saturday. So getting the frame section back inside the garage, you could see, even sped up, I could see that I'm heavy breathing. I'm running a little low on steam at this point, but it's getting late in the day. I did overcut this section. I don't know how I screwed that up, but cutting in some tabs from I think some 10 gauge, just random scraps that I had in the scrap bin, and extending that leg out, vacuuming up a lot of the rust that's trapped. There's a lot of stuff trapped inside the frame rails on this thing. I'm gonna try and the front will be better. I can cut the front of the frame rails off and then vacuum everything out, but getting in the fetal position there to do the TIG welding vertical up, getting that tab put on, it turned out really nice. Excellent camera work as always, man, 5 stars. So one thing I did want to do here is just add a hole to plug weld into that tab I just added. I do really like these little squeeze bottles for the anchor lube. You can be surgical with putting that stuff on. Excellent tip by Tom Lipton from Ox Tools. That's hugely helpful. So definitely make my hole saw last a little bit longer. So I've got that hole cut in both sides and getting the frame put back together. All the marks that we made earlier, super helpful. And this is where I stopped. I wanted to make sure that I didn't get too excited and weld it together and overlook some small mistakes. So this is kind of where we're wrapping it up this week. The shorten, I think, went well. Hell of a lot of work. But I've got it, racked back into position, the front lined up as planned, and it's ready for welding. So next time. So that was a lot. I just got done watching it myself and feeling pretty good about the progress. Really happy with how the rust removal system with the acid worked. I think the next steps for me on that is to, one, move it outside for fumes, and sometimes, it's just not a good thing to keep around other metal things. I got a lot of machine tools in the shop. I don't have anything in that close proximity. You see like muriatic acid will wreck people's chainsaws if they keep them too close together, just the fumes, but this isn't nearly that caustic. So even still, I'd like to maybe get some bigger totes, move that outside, add some heating solution, and beyond that, continue to work on the Buick frame, and see, I'd like to get it, under the car, get the bumper and the core support mocked up, start to see what that stuff's going to look like. Hopefully 3D scan everything and start to design the connecting bits to turn the town car frame into the Skylark frame. we'll see how that works out. I don't think it's anything that's going to be practical for other people, so I don't see selling the files or anything like that. But it'd be cool to share the process, and I'm learning as we go. So thank you to everybody that watches. I get a lot of comments from people, and I really do appreciate that. I see a little bit of growth every week. So if you like what I'm doing, please comment, subscribe, all of those things. I'm a YouTube guy now, I guess. All hail the algorithm. So honestly, this keeps me motivated. I really do enjoy it. I look forward to doing the work and then sharing it. So I'm getting mushy. That's all for now. See you guys next week.